Hello and welcome. In today's video we're gonna learn how to solder. One of you asked me if I could make a video showing just some of the beginner things you need to start learning how to solder and get the ball rolling. So if you've never soldered before, or if you maybe have soldered and you weren't really happy with your results, this video is for you, and hopefully by the end of this video you'll feel better equipped to start this amazing hobby, soldering things together. Now, there are a couple of things that you're gonna need. We're not gonna go through everything in this video, but we'll go through the basics. You're gonna need something like a soldering iron. That's the first thing you need. That's the tool used to do the soldering. And in most cases, your first soldering iron will be something like this. It's just a soldering iron and a cable. You plug it into the wall. This will start heating up, and then you can use this to melt the solder. This will work, but I recommend that you get yourself a soldering station. It looks something like this. The other one will work, and it's one of those things that I used for maybe the first 20-30 guitars I made, and I used it on some of the first pedals as well, I think. But this is better, both quality-wise and also because it lets you control the temperature of your soldering iron, which is important when you're doing things like, for example, building pedals, which is what I do here on this channel a lot. As you can see here, I have a display, and on this display I can control the heat. I can change what it is. If I need to make it warmer for something, a bigger part that will be harder to heat up, or if I have something really small and I don't want to overheat it and potentially damage it, I can lower the heat. Now, next thing you're going to need is solder, and I recommend something around a 1 millimeter to start off with, but there are different sizes for different things depending on what it is you're doing. But I don't think you need thinner or thicker when you are starting out. If you're building something, more DIY in the studio sort of thing. But there are different thickness for different things and different times. But if you get yourself a 1 mil, I think you're gonna do pretty well, probably, unless you're doing something special where you need something else. One thing that is very important is that you keep your tip clean. And what I mean about that is, if you look at your tip, it will have a shiny, silvery, chrome-like tip. The tip of it will be. And it can get dull, and it can look black and dirty and grimy. And if it does so, it's not going to be usable. You're not going to be able to do anything. You'll notice that you're melting the solder, but it's just becoming a little bead on itself, and it's just shrinking in as you're melting it, but it's not actually floating onto the soldering iron. And that's when you need to clean your tip. And if you've not cleaned it every time you used it for a very long time, you might get to the point where you can't clean it, and then you have to switch the tip out. Now, in most cases, when you buy a soldering iron, you also get a little sponge. They usually come and they look something like this. They can be a little bit bigger. This one is for my soldering station, so it has a little place for it. You soak this in water and you press it out until it's not dripping, basically. And then you just pull on the soldering iron until the solder falls off and the grime and dirt falls off. Another thing you can get is a separate little steel wool-like thing like this. It's not steel wool, but it kind of looks like it. That's another thing where you can clean your soldering iron, which I'm going to show you how to do. There are also things like this, which if you open it up and you look at it, it looks kind of grayish like this. And that is a tip cleaner as well. Basically, you stick the tip into it, and as you do so, it will melt it, and it will create a bubbly effect around the tip, and then you can clean that off a little bit, and the tip will look shiny and new again. It works great for those moments when maybe you've done something like melt a little bit of plastic or something and you feel like, no, I've probably ruined my tip right now. Well, then that's what you use. You can find that anywhere. It's not something unique or special. Most hardware stores don't have it, but if you look, for example, on Amazon and you search for soldering iron tip cleaner, you'll find it there. Or just soldering iron cleaner. It's also something you can search on. You'll find it, and it's not something that you necessarily need unless something happens, and then you might actually need it. When you're a beginner, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna have times when you poke at something and you melt a little bit of plastic or something, and your tip gets dirty. It's just a part of trying out something new. This is flux. And flux, it comes in two different versions. It comes in a liquid form and in a solid form. And it's a question of what you prefer. And it helps the solder flow, makes it easier to work on things, makes it easier for things to stick together. You don't always need to use flux, but if you're struggling and you're having a hard time getting things to stick together, or if you're working with sensitive components, that's when you need to use flux. I suggest that you use flux, even if you think maybe you don't need it, because it's easier to screw up in the beginning not using flux. I didn't use flux the 21st times I used my soldering iron, but I wish I had. So how do I clean my tip? Well, it's actually a lot easier than you might think. For example, if you're going with the sponge, here I have the sponge, and as you can probably tell when I press on it, there's water in it. And you take your tip and you just pull on it like this across the sponge, cleaning off all sides, like so. And you can see the tip is a little silvery. The same thing goes with this sort of cleaning thing. You just drag it across. You can stab at it a little bit like this as well. And there you have it. You unravel the solder so that you have a wick sticking out like this, and you press it into the soldering iron. Just a little tab like this. And if it melts, and you can see that it's like building up a little bead on top of the tip like this, then you know that everything is working the way it should. If it just keeps melting but not actually going into the soldering iron, but just, the wick is getting shorter, or if it's not melting at all, then you have probably, most likely, a problem with your tip not being clean enough. So here we have a part. Let's put a little bit of solder on it and see what it looks like. So you hold your soldering iron up to the part, you move your solder into it, and then you melt the solder into the part. Like so. And it will bead up on the part, and it will be a shiny, nice little cover surrounding the part. If you're connecting something like a wire, then you need to put solder down on the wire first, so that there is solder on the wire, solder on the part, and then we can just hold the part up to, we can melt them together like so. Very, very easy to do if you prepared both parts, and if both parts have solder on them, and if both parts are shiny and not dull, it should float together real quick and real easy. Sometimes you solder parts like capacitors or resistors to a circuit, and what's important is, if you look at this, you can see that all of the soldering points are little cones. And that's because when you look at the board, you will have places that the parts are going in through, little holes, and there will be a little copper circle surrounding that area. And you need to solder that circle to the part, and that's why it becomes a little cone. They should all be shiny, like you can see here, and cone-shaped. If you have a bead on and it's shiny, but you can see that it's not actually connected to the board, maybe even the part is able to move and not stuck in place, then you haven't soldered it in to the board. You've just added soldered to one of the legs. Put the part through the hole with long legs, if you have new components, solder it in place, make sure they look like little cones or triangles or pyramids, and then snip the legs down by the base where the solder and the circuit board meets, so that the leg is as short as possible, but you're not actually cutting into the solder. It should be really easy to do. It should flow just easy and quick. You shouldn't have to hold it in there for more than a second or a second and a half. And yeah, if you're having trouble doing that, it's most likely that either you don't have any flux on the surface and you need to use flux, or your soldering iron isn't clean. So if you're having issues, try cleaning your soldering iron, try adding a little bit of flux. Flux is your friend. Okay? Now, it's very easy to get overwhelmed when you're starting out, but honestly, all you need is a soldering iron, some solder, and some flux. 3 things. You can get helping hands like these. I showed you a little bit. I don't think that's super necessary when you begin working. You can get some heat shrink tube. It's just a plastic tube like this that you put over cables and things like that, and then when it's in the right place and everything has been sorted, you heat it up and it will shrink around things. You can get some electrical tape as well. These are things that are good to have. But honestly, when you're just starting out, just tinkering with things, keep it basic and simple and easy. Try to just make some circuit things a little bit, a toy thing or something, and just practice. Pedals, for example, which we do a lot here on the channel, can be a very easy way to get into it, but it can also be a little bit frustrating. So make sure that if you're gonna do a pedal as your first thing you do with soldering, that you do something simple and easy, maybe not too many parts. I suggest maybe something like a fuzz face, for example. If you get yourself something like a fuzz face kit and you put that together, you're gonna have a great time. It's gonna be fairly easy, and if you run into any issues and you want to talk to someone, you can do so in the comments below on this video or any of my other videos. Lastly, I just want to say it's supposed to be fun. I mean, obviously, you can turn anything into work, but this is a hobby, or at least here on this channel, we'll try to keep this a hobby. And so I suggest going slow, practice a little bit, soldering a couple of wires together, building a circuit board or two, some funny little project that you can find, a kit of some sort, and just go slow. Just take your time, switch out the pickups in your guitar, for example. So that's a very easy first soldering things to do if you're into music, and just have fun experimenting and seeing what happens when you solder. It really isn't that hard. It really isn't that big of a deal. I realize that a lot of people get nervous thinking that they're going to screw up somehow. But if you're just careful and you're just concentrating on what you're doing and you're going slow and you're taking your time and you're relaxed, not stressing about it too much, then it's not that hard, and you're going to be able to do this, and you're going to be amazed by how quickly you learn. My biggest suggestion is being very like a neat freak about things, and always keeping your tip clean, and always making sure your tip is clean, looking at it, solder a part in place, look at the tip, is it clean, clean it off a little bit, solder in the next part, look at your tip, is it clean it off, and just go like that for every step, from everything you solder in place when you're starting out, and you'll have a great time. You don't have to be that crazy about it once you've gotten a hang of things, but in the beginning, just do that. every time, even now, when I have an issue with soldering, it's because my tip isn't clean. And so 99% of the time when you're having an issue with soldering, it's because something is dirty and needs to be cleaned. Sometimes it's your board that you're soldering parts to that isn't clean, so that's a thing too, but most of the time it's just soldering iron. I hope this little video helped and that you are now ready to go out and solder. You can do it. I believe in you, so you should believe in you too. All right? If you're new here, don't forget to press the like and the subscribe button. If this video helped you, let me know by writing that in the comments below. You can just give me a thumbs up or something in the comments, I don't know. And if you're one of my old subscribers who have been soldering for years, write something down there that is a little trick, something that helps people, so that everyone who shows up here who has never soldered before gets something that can help them. Maybe there was something I missed that I probably should have said. So let's help each other out in the comments below. Thank you so much for doing that. I know you guys are always awesome and always helping. So that's I really like it when I see you guys helping each other. Anyway, that's the end of this video. Until next time, don't forget to stay awesome and cool and go and build something cool. It can be a guitar, it can be an amp, it can be a pedal. Maybe not an amp if this is your first time soldering. Maybe start with something like a little fuzz face. That's a great pedal. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys in the comments below, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.